Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share yet another update on my experience with the Samsung Galaxy Fold. Now, for those of you that missed my unboxing or my first update, I will refresh you, catch you up. This is a nearly $2,000 smartphone that is the first on Earth to have a folding display. And while this was supposed to launch back in April, it was delayed because of defects in manufacturing. Or I should say that through the process of review units going out to the press, they found different issues that probably, or I should say definitely, would be likely to be experienced by consumers. And for that reason, they went back to the drawing board to fix those issues. And you can see the Type-C port, one speaker here, another speaker at the top. Audio on this thing is fantastic. Using it as a candy bar style phone like this, great experience. Yes, this screen is fairly small. It's under 5 inches. That's not the norm these days, but boy, do I remember the days when iPhone users swore by this format and were not interested in anything larger. With that said, I don't think that the front screen being this small is an issue. I don't have gigantor hands, so I haven't had an issue typing. Would I like it to be a little bit larger? Sure, but this is the screen they could fit, because otherwise you would be looking at a longer screen, which to me is not really of use, because after all, you have that 7.3-inch display on the interior. Now, what's amazing about this is that it is not only a folding screen, but it's a Super AMOLED. And Super AMOLED is what permits this sort of functionality. And just to go ahead and show you a video quickly, and I so far really have been amazed by what this phone is capable of. You know, there are concerns about the build quality, but in my experience, here's the audio quality.
You know, the front display gets a lot of flack, a lot of criticism for not being larger, and I understand why. You're spending $2,000. This is not what phones look like.
A little bit ironic that that's exactly what I was just talking about, and then it's in that.
Today. But phones also obviously don't look like this, and that's a big deal. And I haven't customized, but you know, I've been using the phone while charging it up at the same time, and I am thoroughly impressed with it. And that's because this is a first-gen device. And what Samsung has done...
And that's dead on. I am thoroughly impressed, and I'm not doctoring or catering to the device in order to make sure that you don't see the crease. You can see it's there. What I can tell you is that direct viewing, you do not see the crease. You can feel it, sure, but direct viewing of this phone, you will not see the crease. Now, come at any angle, it's visible. And that's generally been my experience. Where you have to be careful with this phone is this interior display. The 7.3-inch Super AMOLED display is sensitive, and that's because we don't have Corning Gorilla Glass. You know, every phone that you've likely used in the last, I don't know, let's see, when did I first start following Corning specifically because of Gorilla Glass? I think the late 2000s. Every phone has had one revision or another of Gorilla Glass. It really became prominent in, I would say, around 2010, 2011. And now everyone uses it. And it's the most resilient glass a smartphone pretty much can have. But when you're working with a Super AMOLED foldable screen, you have to use a plastic substrate. This is not news. I used to invest in OLED companies. Most of them have been gobbled up. Samsung actually bought one of the companies that I used to invest in many, many years ago. And this is kind of a result of what I was interested in when I was, you know, researching OLEDs far before they were ever even a thought about mainstream use. I mean, medical devices, things like that, you could roll out a screen, and these things will eventually get here. This is your preview into the future, not just for smartphones, but imaging overall. And that's what's amazing about this. So people who say that, well, $2,000 is too much for this, those are the same people willing to spend nearly $2,000 on an iPhone 11 Pro, just because it's got the highest storage capacity. Or the same people that are willing to spend, you know, before tax, $1,250 for this, the Note 10 Plus, so in its highest capacity. So I really don't think $2,000 is too much for this device. And I'll reiterate that over and over again. The issue I have with it is that as a daily driver, because this screen is so sensitive, and when I say it's so sensitive, your fingernail absolutely can scratch it. I haven't tried to. In the times my fingernail has met the screen, it has not been scratched, but I still am concerned. You know, when I hand it to someone to take a look at, I'm worried. Not because it's $2,000, but because I know the screen is so fragile. And I know that most people are the opposite of gentle with their smartphones. In fact, they've become conditioned that they have IP ratings where if they drop them in the toilet, even if it's not sanitary to keep using it, you better believe they keep using it. So, with that in mind, this internal display is beautiful. Fantastic job that we have a real folding phone. I mean, this is not a prototype. This is a real deal. It's built like a brick house. Again, the front screen really can't be bigger. I mean, I'd like it to be, and all the complaints I understand, you'd like it to be as well. But the truth of the matter is that with this candy bar shape, there's just no way of pulling that off. There's nowhere else to put the screen except to stretch it out, make it longer. So that's why this is this way. It's not because Samsung is stupid. It's not because they didn't care what it looked like. It's because the most important element was this bad boy right here. So, with that said, battery life has been good. It's not as good as my Note 10 Plus. That is, if you continue to use the interior screen, the Fold. If you just use this, baby screen on the front, the preliminary preview screen, then battery life is fantastic because remember, this has two batteries, one in each half, that equate to 4,380 milliamp hours. That's a lot of juice. But is it a lot of juice for a tablet? Not really. I mean, it's enough. So, something to bear in mind, but that doesn't mean battery life has been bad. I'm just saying if you plan on spending all of your time unfolded like this, then expect the battery to, sip down, relatively, not real time, but close to it. Especially if you crank brightness all the way up, which I didn't even have it all the way up, but now I do. So that you should know in advance. Camera performance, great. I mean, you've got so many cameras because it was just the way the phone was engineered, and they all perform very well. The same cameras that you'll find on the S10 lineup and the Note 10 lineup. So there's nothing to say in terms of poor performance. All of them are fantastic. So that's good news and to be expected. The included case is fine. It's better than nothing. The included earbuds are fine. They're good, in fact, but that's not why you bought the phone, right? And this can charge the earbuds. This can charge any device that has, Qi wireless charging. But remember, the magnets in here are strong enough that if you put it in a pocket and it's contacting or very close to your credit cards, it will wipe them. If you have any sort of medical implant, it can affect it. So there are things to take into account. Now, is this every consumer? Well, the credit card thing is. I mean, if you're a person who likes to stick your phone in the same pocket as your wallet, or you like to put your phone in your purse where your wallet is, you're going to have a problem. Now, I don't have this problem because I've always, for years now, babied my devices. So babying a device and making sure it doesn't get beaten up and it doesn't end up looking like garbage, I'm already accustomed to that. It's an old story with me. So I do that already. And this phone is no exception. So essentially, even before this ever got into my hands, my Note 10 Plus, my Note 9, every single phone for possibly the last, I'm going to say 7 years, has had its own pocket, as bizarre as that sounds. It's the truth. That's the way it's been. And as a result, I'm totally accustomed to giving this its own space. Does it weigh more? Yes. You're talking about 1.5 ounces, maybe 2 ounces at most, than whatever phone you're probably on right now. Is that like a major difference? No. Is it a difference you will feel? Yes. Dimensions, it's longer than most phones, and as I already stated, heavier, but you are putting a tablet in your pocket, and that's what you need to remember. Now, one thing I will say, it's not a knock against this device, is that because the resolution on the unfolded display is a little bit lower than I would have liked, but this is what Samsung was able to develop, not a big deal. You're not going to get as much information on this screen as I would, say, on my Note 10 Plus. And I'll probably reserve that for the direct comparison, but that's something you should be aware of. Another thing I want to talk about is the notch. A lot of people hate that notch, and I get it. I'm anti-notch, but this is innovation. And if in this scenario, the notch had to be here, I can't really bitch. I can't complain. It is there because there was nowhere else to put it. And a lot of people in comments have said, couldn't they have just eliminated this and you would have relied on this camera in order to do any, the camera right here on the front, on the candy bar front, in order to do any selfies or video chatting? And the answer is they could have. They wanted to make this as versatile as possible. And if you want to be able to utilize the unfolded version, which I think everyone would like to, and be able to take images or chat, these selfie cameras had to be employed. There's just no other way of doing it, okay? The fingerprint scanner is on the side, Bixby button, volume rocker. Now, I've reprogrammed the fingerprint scanner in order to control notifications, and for a very simple reason. I am a righty. I mean, I'm really ambidextrous. You want to get into it deep here. But that is one thing where the notch gets in the way, right? I mean, you want to swipe down. You can't. No. You have to go over to the left side or right on the crease, right next to the crease. But with reprogramming the fingerprint scanner, you're easily going to control your notifications without having to go up here. But it's also a bit of a pain in the butt because inherently you will accidentally touch this and bring down notifications when you don't want them. So that's another thing to be aware of. I've also reprogrammed the Bixby button to be power. I've done the same on my Note 10 Plus, so that was nothing new to do here for everyday use. I've also made the display on the front always on, simply because this is kind of like an S-View case, if you think about it, for the interior folded screen, which is kind of cool, but that will eat your battery life. Now, is it significant? No, that's why it's worth doing, in my opinion, but if it bothers you, obviously disable it. Don't leave it on. It does not always need to be on. These are all options under settings, by the way. For those of you that are wondering, I'll go ahead and bring it down if it decides to cooperate. So essentially, you're talking about jumping into notifications, you're talking about jumping into display, you're talking about jumping into advanced features. All of those things live there. If you really want a walkthrough on that, I can do that. You're talking about jumping into lock screen as well. But as I mentioned, that one thing which I will get to in the Note 10 comparison, the fact that we can't play with resolution, it's part of the vice of having a folding display. What else can I tell you? And I wish that we could. I mean, it wouldn't really matter here. The resolution isn't high enough, but it's still, it sounds like I'm making a bigger deal of it than should be. And I'm not. I'm just identifying a limitation of this incredible device, this foldable display that you must be so careful with. This is pretty dangerous what I'm doing right now. So no IP rating, no water or dust resistance whatsoever, 0. So it's another thing. I mean, like, personally, that's not a major, I don't like the no dust resistance. I don't want dust under this screen. Water, I don't take my phone into water. So that's already not an issue. And I really try not to get it wet because in the past, anytime that I have gotten a water resistant phone wet, the speakerphone inherently suffers until it dries out or never recovers, depending on who the manufacturer is. So that's really not a big deal. But what I have mentioned, how fragile this is, the fact that it can wipe your credit cards out, the fact that it could interfere with a medical device, those are things you need to know that you're getting yourself involved with. Once that's out of the way, there's nothing to dislike about this phone. This phone changes the game. This phone sets a standard that Microsoft isn't even emulating today, and they're telling us that the Duo will come out in a year from now. It won't be a continuous screen. It'll be a clamshell, something from 10 years ago that maybe now we finally will get a proper version of. This, on the other hand, is good to go today. This is something you can own for a few years before the rest of the competition probably gets to where this is. And I'm not saying that, again, the Chinese manufacturers that have models coming out around the corner, different designs, none are as good as this, in my opinion. The foldable screen belongs on the interior. And I'm sure that they will eventually produce something. But right now, this is as good as it gets. And again, call quality, data, all of those things are working just as they do, if not better, than my Note 10 Plus. The only thing, as I mentioned earlier, is the Note 10 Plus is able to display more information on its smaller screen. And I will do this just for demonstration purposes. See, there's that accidental that I was talking about. I will just show you right now the Note 10 Plus. I will not make contact with this because it will definitely scratch it. You can see it's not the equivalent of 2 Note 10 Pluses. I would say it's about another 20% of screen real estate. But because the resolution is lower, that's a trade-off you make, isn't it? But overall, the phone is fantastic. It's an incredible piece of technology. And as I mentioned at the top of the video, if you can find one, I mean, the demo units are all over the place, go and see one. Even if you don't plan on buying it, you'll get a glimpse into the future. You will get excited about a smartphone, maybe for the first time in a really long time, because quite frankly, no one has brought anything new to the table in years. Yeah, internals get updated, great, cameras improve. I mean, we're to the point where cameras are the only thing they can improve until now. And now we have a new genre. Now we have a new product type. And it's going to continue. This is, I assure you, this will not be the last. And that's why Samsung did not quit on this in spite of their production problems. And anyone who says disregard this because of its fragility, explain to me how technology, how innovation has ever occurred. If we ignored everything because it had pitfalls, shortcomings, we would have no innovation at all. With that said, I can fully say this phone is worth the money if you are going to take care of it. It's kind of like getting a pet. If you're going to take care of it and do the right thing, you're going to enjoy the experience. However, if you're one of those people that always breaks their phone, just buy insurance. But remember, Samsung is including a free screen replacement, not free, excuse me, $150. That's almost free when you think about it in relation to the actual cost. They are giving you that screen replacement if you purchase it before the end of this year, that is 2019. So that's one thing. And they do have a much more aggressive level of support and service for this. If you can avoid AT&T, I would. If you need their calling features, the Wi-Fi calling, then you got to eat the poison, right? Eat the poo-poo, as they say. But otherwise, I say go unlocked, because why on earth would you want bloatware like this? And I didn't even show you the bloatware, but it's ridiculous. And if you're an AT&T customer or a Verizon customer, you already know what bloatware tastes like. But overall, fantastic handset. Kudos to Samsung. Anyone who thinks this should have been shelved should be shelved. That sounds horrible, and don't read into that. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Another update on a fantastic device that so far my experience has been great with. And again, really no complaints outside of the one I made about the resolution. And that's nitpicking to the nth. Again, you must be careful, but as long as you have insurance, it really shouldn't be such a big issue. So all the people pretending like, oh, I can't use it as a daily driver because it'll inherently break, you probably already insure your $1,000 to $1,500 phone that you've been using for many years. And by that, I mean every single model that you've purchased that's been in that price range. But that rounds things out. Get insurance, get yourself a Fold. And as long as you take care of that internal screen, you should be okay. Of course, this is not my full and final review. I will also compare this to the Note 10 Plus. I'll also talk about the Tab S6 in relation to this. But that rounds things out for today. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. Hit that like button. And as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.